Hey there, and welcome to ALPB Roundup. My name is Ryan. I'm the guy behind ALPB Roundup. I'm sure most of you don't know me yet. Some of you may. Talked to a few people so far, but for the most part, I've been the person behind blog posts and stat sheets. But obviously, we're doing some video now. The quick backstory, if you don't know, ALPB Roundup, we started last January, which, if it isn't perfectly obvious, was a rough time to start a site that covers professional baseball, let alone the Atlantic League, because, there was nothing to cover. So that was a tough one. Did a lot of transaction analysis for transactions that never really came to fruition or never really mattered on the field. So we're now in year 2 of doing transactions at ALPB Roundup. And in that time, I've had a career change. I've had, had a wedding, had lots of travel, lots of interesting stuff happen. So it didn't really matter too much, of course, while there was no baseball going on. But as the season approaches now, and as I get settled into a new career, which has me waking up at 4 a.m., I'm not a morning person. It has required some changes to how we do content at ALPB Roundup. We've always intended to do video, and now this seems to be the push that we needed. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start this out doing some video. We'll start with our weekly roundups, the way we would typically do on the website, where we look at transactions from the past week. When the season actually comes along, we'll be doing quick hit daily videos and daily posts also on the page and on all of our social media. We're going to pick up this video content with what we would actually normally be doing, which is a weekly roundup looking at transactions from the past week and any other league news, but for the most part, it's transactions. I mean, that's the vast majority of what we've done for the past year and a half now. But as the season comes forward, we'll see some special season preview episodes, maybe team by team, maybe just across divisions. We'll see how we want to work that, and we'll see how much content we have, and don't want to make videos too long here. And then as the season comes along, we'll be doing daily content, recapping games from the night before, who stood out, who's moving. You know, rosters can change very quickly in the Atlantic League, so we'll make sure everyone's up to date on that. And then at the end of every series, whether it's the Monday off day or if it's sort of the late in the week, getting ready for the weekend series look ahead, we'll make sure that we are getting some content out there, letting you know what to look forward to. If you're going to games, if you're watching games online, we'll make sure you're in the loop, you're in the know on your favorite teams and your favorite players. So let's kick this off by looking at the 3 teams that really have not actually added too much to the roster over the past couple weeks while I've been busy figuring out this new sleep schedule of mine. The first of the 3 teams, and they are actually the 3 newest teams within the league, is Gastonia, the Honey Hunters. Gastonia, while they might not have added any players, they did put single game tickets on sale, so make sure you get that. I got my opening day tickets. I'm actually looking forward to trying to do a double, back-to-back, taking the Thursday of that Memorial Day weekend, hit Gastonia for opening night, and then getting it right back to York, a little closer to home here, see if I can get 2 games in 2 days to kick things off. I'll probably try to get some video content out on that, whether it's of the games or me just regretting the drive. Who's to say yet? But keep an eye out for that. Get your tickets now, support these teams. They've been hurting over the past year and a half now, and they've been doing a lot to try to get things going, especially Gastonia. For Gastonia, they were looking forward to having the big coming out party this year. I'm glad we still have them on opening night. I think they deserve that, but it's also tough now they're kind of sharing that Atlantic League new team shine with Lexington and West Virginia, who are 2 established organizations owned by the same group, and that's Gastonia is just trying to figure it out. So I really hope they get a good start. I really hope the fans come out for that. It was not easy to get tickets. I know there's a limitation on those tickets being sold right now, but I had to dig around. I like sitting on the aisle because I like me some legroom. It wasn't. I had to search, man. So hopefully that's a good sign of things to come for Gastonia. I know they've been looking forward to it. They have a great management team over there, so I'm excited to see what they do. Further, we'll go to Lexington and West Virginia. Lexington and West Virginia haven't made much of a ruckus over the past couple weeks, but they've really been adding players. I mean, they are the 2 teams that really stood out as jumping on players early and often using a lot of the connections they have mutually and using their connections, I'm sure, from minor league baseball and also from their coaching staffs to bring in some players. So we're going to talk a little bit more of that during the season previews. We're actually going to do an early season preview in the next week or so I won't even go too much into what they have on their rosters already. All right, so let's hop into some teams that have made some moves. High Point Rockers, always making moves, always seem to be up to something behind the scenes. I'm excited to see what they have coming for their second full season now that they've had, such a long break between their first season here. But they made one big move. They got Juan Perez in. Juan Perez is an outfielder. He's looked great in the Mexican leagues, especially in 2019. I got 312, 396, 453 in 2019. So he's played well. He actually has a World Series, too, with the San Francisco Giants in 2014. He's played 117 MLB games, so not a cup of coffee, but it wasn't really a regular. Now he returns to American baseball actually for the first time since 2017, according to what I'm seeing. So at least American professional baseball. I don't know what else he's been up to, but if you look on Baseball Reference, it's the first time he's playing American ball since 2017. We expect him to start the majority of High Point's games in center or right field, depending on how they construct this outfield. And that outfield is pretty bare right now. Ever since Quincy Lattimore took off to Italy a little while back, like they have Mike Carp, but he's really like a corner utility guy. Like a corner utility guy is what we've been using to describe a lot of these Atlantic League guys who play left field, right field, third base, first base. I mean, plop them in any corner of the field, they'll do fine, but don't put them up the middle. So Mike Carp is kind of in that corner utility range. So he's not a natural outfielder necessarily, or at least not primarily an outfielder based on everyone's point of view. Not sure how High Point plans to use him. I'm sure they'll be getting creative. They have a great team of coaches and staff who are finding and figuring out how they want to utilize guys. So I don't doubt them, but I only see so far Juan Perez here as a guy who is just a natural outfielder who will be playing probably most every day. When it comes to projections and what we have here, so ALPB Roundup, if you don't know, we usually take the last 4 active seasons of play, which for some guys can be a lot. In the Atlantic League, every once in a while you'll find a guy where you're digging back to 2013 stats to find some good info. We work league equivalencies into it, work trends into it. We throw it through our projection model and we see what comes out. We get a high-end projection, a low-end projection, and then the trend of really the bulk of what's in there. So with that out of the way, I mean, he's looking like he projects as a 290-ish hitter. With an OPS near 800, which is great. That's definitely something you want to look for from an outfielder. Maybe you could use a little more pop, but we like what he has, and he has a very high potential to improve as well because we project him as like a 2.3 WAR type of guy. There's very little downside. Like his low-end projections are just below 2 WAR, so it's not like the bottom's going to fall out, and it's going to be a big issue for a team that signs him. But 4.6 WAR was his high end, so I mean he is the ability to double his value to a team depending on how he comes out of the gate, depending on how quickly he adjusts the Atlantic League and their pitching, their style of play, and all of that. So, this is a great signing. I got nothing bad to say. I mean, it's worth noting he did have a slow 2020 season, but it was a very small sample. 2020 was weird for everybody. The projection model is putting very little into like weird, short season, small sample stuff. Like those guys who played in the American Association, there's a bunch who played for like 15, 20 games. If you played in Jersey and that like all-American baseball thing they had going on, I mean, some of these guys were just ditching those numbers. It's hard to even say what they are. So, we like him at ALPB Roundup. We think he's a good fit, and we think he'll do well in the Atlantic League. So we're looking forward to that for High Point. Moving right ahead to another team who has signed one guy over the past couple of weeks, we have Lancaster Barnstormers who have picked up Trayvon Robinson. Trayvon, he's got 3 Atlantic League seasons already behind him. He slashed 280, 363, 425 in those seasons, really contributing well. Good offensive production, especially after a really bad start to the 2016 season, actually with Somerset, before then transitioning to Lancaster. Must have found something with Lancaster. I don't know. Maybe he's comfortable and maybe likes that ballpark. Not sure, but he hit 235 with a 697 OPS in Somerset. And then since then in Lancaster, he's hit 293 with an 815-ish OPS. So the man's raking in Lancaster. There's not much to say other than that. I mean, he just found something there. AAA, he played AAA ball with Pittsburgh in 2019, so he actually played well enough that Lancaster took notice of a guy who was doing good work in PA, and they just brought him to the West Side. He actually hit great, 120 OPS plus according to my math, which I'll admit is not perfect for leagues that aren't the Atlantic League, but just around a 120 OPS plus. So that OPS plus, 100 being league average, if you don't know, 120 OPS plus, which is what he posted. I mean, that's a good year. It's kind of weird that he's not in the Pittsburgh system. I don't know the logistics of how they work. I do know Lancaster scored here. The fact that he was freed up to come back, the fact that he didn't drift more toward the Midwest into like the American Association or something along those lines, you gotta love it. He seems to like Lancaster, as I said. He must have found something there because he was able to continue it in Pittsburgh's system. Whatever it is he found, good for him. Let's hope he keeps it going, and the projections like him too. He's definitely a dude. Like, look at him. He'll have an above-average season offensively. The projections are comfortable. Like, his low-end projection is still, like, right at league average. We don't project him to really hit that 300 mark for batting average. He doesn't typically do that. But we do like him as, like, a 3.5 WAR contributor. So that's, I mean, as I just said, we like Juan Perez, and he was a 2.3 WAR guy according to our projection. So he's a 3.5 guy. I mean, that's huge for Lancaster outfield. He'll be wedged in somewhere among like the BJ Boyd, Ladarius Clark, Kelly Dugan, Blake Galen, Devin Torrance. I mean, they got a lot of guys out there, but probably so far, in our opinion, Trayvon Robinson, he's going to be a fit who will play a lot of innings for them. He has in the past. He will probably continue to. So Trayvon Robinson making his way back into Lancaster, Pennsylvania. All right, enough with these one-off signings from teams. Let's go to Long Island, where they have been very, very busy over the past couple of weeks. First and foremost, I mean, Vin Mazzaro is back. Vin Mazzaro, if you weren't in the loop with 2019 or you just have forgotten because some time has passed, Vin Mazzaro was that guy, man. Started the season in the bullpen. July, he comes into the starting rotation. He went like, I think, 11-0. Is that right? 8-0 in the regular season, 3-0 in the postseason. God, I mean, across 13 starts, 11-0, 2.05 ERA. I mean, 3-0 in the playoffs with a 1.77 ERA. Who is this man? Out of nowhere, Vin Mazzaro just tore the league apart. I mean, it's easy to get caught up in it. I don't see him, the projections don't see him putting up that kind of like stat line again, but he could. Another one of these guys with like a very good high-end projection and then a little more subdued, like let's wait and see type of actual trend projection, that middle ground there. But regardless of it, I mean, he's an MLB vet with great experience. It's going to benefit the entire pitching staff. Long Island's great that they know how to put together a team, first and foremost. I mean, you don't go to that many championships, you don't have that many playoff runs without knowing how to build a team. And it's not only having good players, but having a good core, a good leadership group, which is tough in the Atlantic League, where so many guys are getting snatched in and out of this locker room, depending on, what an MLB team sees and what they need. So getting a good, solid guy like Vin Mazzaro was a tremendous move as we approach the season. The projections are good, too. I mean, assuming he's a starter, which I don't see why he wouldn't be. I'm not in the loop. I haven't talked to him. I haven't talked to Long Island about it. But assuming he's a starter, our model projects an ERA in the low to mid threes, which I know it isn't the 2.05 he had, but that was still a relatively small sample, and the league's going to start to catch up to him a little bit. But he's 34 years old. I mean, that should be a 2 or a 3 starter on this team. That's great. He should be able to eat up some innings as he kind of extends. There are some concerns on the low-end projection. He could dip a little bit, depending on having to do, a full season of pitching out of the rotation, if that's the angle they decide to go with. That is a concern. 34-year-old who really hasn't been doing that. But Vin Mazzaro, I mean, hard to say anything bad about the guy. It's in a rotation with other credible arms at this point. He's a likely 2 or 3 starter for this 2021 campaign. It's a great ad. Former MLB guy here, Ryan Jackson. Most recently, he was in the MLB with the 2015 Angels, so, it's not like he's stepping out of an MLB locker room into the Atlantic League. I get it. But he's got MLB experience. He projects to start at shortstop, but he can also play second and third. That's just, based, again, off the projections. I don't know anything within Long Island. It's one of those organizations I actually have very little insider info with. But he's played 112 games between 2017 and 2019 in the Atlantic League with Sugar Land and New Britain. Most of those games were in 2019. He's batted 257, slashed, 257, 333, 312 slugging, only 2 homers in 2019. That's not, it's not bad, but it's not great by any means. Let's call it what it is. 2.1 WAR player, according to our math on that. 78 OPS plus, which that puts him below league average, sure, but he should fit in the bottom third of the order as the regular shortstop. The projections have him as roughly a 260 hitter with like a sub 700 OPS plus. He has a 30% chance of contributing over 2 WAR, which, isn't bad. Maybe up the middle you like a little bit more. So I'll go that far. I would say probably you want a little bit more out of the shortstop spot. But as I said, Long Island understands how to build a team, especially in this league. And I have total confidence in them making up for whatever's missing production here, and they seem to see something in Ryan Jackson, assuming he is a starter. Maybe he's more of like a move-around utility guy, up the middle guy. Who's to say what the plan is at this point? There's still a lot of time to sign people, but at least he's a consistent guy who's going to hold down that shortstop spot if they need him to. Unless he blows up here and does great and gets picked up by an MLB organization, I don't see Long Island complaining about that. So it's a good ad by them, and not much you can say other than that. Moving along, though, as I just said, you're probably going to pick up this production elsewhere, and that brings us to Hector Sanchez. And Hector Sanchez is a guy that they just grabbed from Ottawa, which we'll talk about the Frontier League situation later. Hector Sanchez is legit. He's a switch-hitting 31-year-old catcher. Our projections have him posting an OPS plus close to or over 100 in 70% of our models. So average or above average offensively from your catcher spot in 70% of models. That's terrific. See, this is my point. Long Island knows what they're doing. Shortstop, they bring him in, doesn't quite have that offensive production that you might want, grabs a catcher who's going to produce. It's great. We expect him to split time with LJ Mazzilli and occasionally Sal Giardina. He probably got the short end of the stick here. Sal did. He's an entertaining follow on social media. He seems like a nice guy. It's a tough deal for him. He's probably the odd man out in a lot of this. I don't see him falling off the roster, but you don't see him getting nearly as much playing time as he did when the Frontier League was playing to play a full season here. For those of you out of the loop, Frontier League with border things going on is how I'm going to phrase it, border things, because I'm half paying attention at this point. They're going to end up needing to consolidate their Canadian teams into one team. Is going to do a Road Warriors thing in America. A lot of their American players they're getting cut loose and sent back wherever they need to be sent back. So Hector Sanchez got picked up in a trade in the fallout from this. And there are some other people that we can keep an eye out on. I'll bring it up in a future video for sure. But there are some good Frontier League players out there. It'll be interesting to see who lands where and how aggressive Atlantic League teams are in all of that. Jose Cuas. Cuas? It's been a while since 2019. I'm struggling here. I have a feeling I'll learn this guy's name a little bit better as the season goes. He pitched very well, very briefly for Long Island, and he's back for another run at it. They brought him in after, in 2019, he posted a 0.71 ERA and a 0.711 whip in like 12 2/3 of an inning. So, as I said, small sample, but he pitched very well. I bring that to you because, I mean, he put together a 1.41 ERA in 2019, 3.04 FIP, which is sort of giving you a little context. He probably wasn't quite that 1.41 ERA. He probably got a little bit of luck in there. But he had a 0.728 whip. That's good, man. He's an interesting case. He's a former infielder who made the switch after getting, I mean, this poor man got cooked at the single A levels, like throughout the single A levels in the Brewers organization, never made it beyond that. 2.97 ERA, though, since then. He switched over in the minor leagues from playing, infield, moved over to the pitcher's mound, and he's put up a sub-3 ERA since then. So, I mean, you can't ask for it to go any better than that. 106 innings pitched. Now, that is not a small sample. That is something that you can respect. We project him not quite to keep that 2019 pace because that was just outlandish. But we do have him at probably a 2.4-ish ERA over 40 or so innings. High end, I mean, if you're getting everything out of him, if he's a back end of the bullpen guy, reliable go-to, high leverage type of guy that you want to go to any game you can when he's fresh, he could put up about 55 innings or so in a low 2s ERA. So another great signing from Long Island. And all of this, by the way, while the Ducks are in the middle of a war up there in New York, by the way, Michael Pfaff is just going off for this organization, working so hard on the local government, the state government, just trying to get Long Island some home games with crowds there that are profitable. So shout out to the whole Ducks organization for working hard. They got press conferences going on. They got podiums and politicians working hard for them seemingly every day at this point. Constant chatter on Twitter, constantly tagging people, pushing the envelope a little bit, trying to get fans in this ballpark, both for them, the fans, and the organization, and these players. So shout out to Long Island, just continuing to grind nonstop during this pandemic. They knew that they were in for a fight when it came to getting people in the building, and they are fighting. So I love it. Moving right on to Long Island, let's go to a division rival in Southern Maryland who has been wheeling and dealing, as always. I mean, they are looking at this division, seeing that Lancaster and York have been a little inconsistent at times. They know, though, that Long Island is in it to win it, as always, and they're gearing up for a dogfight. You can tell the way they're signing guys and making moves that they're ready to go in 2021. They've been chomping at the bit here. So taking a look at what they've been up to most recently. Got Blake Bivens, a righty who started and pitched in relief. He had a 3.95 ERA in 2019 with AA Montgomery. He was in the Rays system. This is weird. Hear me out here. I have a little bit of concern, and it's not in the projection model, so this is just a personal Ryan thing at this point. I worry about anybody who gets dropped by the Rays. The Rays can make somebody of seemingly anybody. Like last year's World Series, that whole Randy Arozarena thing, you got just dudes out of the woodwork who were like, who are you? Did they sign you off the street? Where did you find that curveball? Like, crazy stuff is always going down in Tampa. So, in a weird way, I get a little when you see a guy who got dropped from the Rays system. But, you know, I don't know the whole situation there. So, I'm just going with what I see and what I've seen on video and all of that. He had that 3.95 ERA. I'm sure what they are seeing in Tampa is the 5.30 FIP, which is brutal. That's not good. That is an indication that 3.95 ERA had a lot of help. He got probably lucky a little bit. Maybe with good distribution of when the hits happened and when RBIs came, like fielding, helping you out. There's a lot that can go into that, but that's something to keep an eye on. Projections are very cautious. The projections pick up on that. The projections are cautious about Blake while projecting about a 4.0 ERA from him in 2021. He'd make a solid bullpen option. His high end does go into like the mid threes ERA wise. That's good. I don't see him being a high leverage type of guy for Southern Maryland, but someone we're going to talk about a little bit later, and Daryl Thompson could fix just about anything with this. So anytime we talk Southern Maryland pitchers, let's just say they are X unless Daryl Thompson turns them into Y. I think that's fair. We'll talk about that later. The same, by the way, could be said for Carlos Diaz here. Carlos Diaz is the first confirmed lefty bullpen arm that I've seen for Southern Maryland. He projects an ERA in the low to mid fours, kind of like Blake there. He has a wider variance than Blake. And what that means is he's got, while he's projected to be an ERA in like the mid to low fours, as I said, his low end that he has a 10% chance of reaching, he's like a 10% chance of throwing with an ERA above 5.5, which is brutal. And then he's got a 10% chance of having like a 3.25 ERA. That is one of the wider ones we're going to see in our projection model. So we are not totally sure what to make of him. He only has 42 2/3 innings above high A, and that's a real reason for that big variance. And because he's pitched well. To be fair, he's pitched well, but not for as many innings as we would need to see to like really project him to do something. Especially the projections take into account those are all innings in like single A and high A. That is not Atlantic League level. Atlantic League, we're really, for the most part, I tend to gear things more toward AAA numbers. That seems to be the best equivalent, and in fact, sometimes even these AAA guys, they can do great in AAA, and then they're not so good when they come to the Atlantic League. There's a lot that goes into it. Don't need to go into it now. I'll probably do a whole video on that, but Carlos Diaz kind of fits in that mold. We're going to see high potential, and to be fair, low risk. He's a lefty bullpen arm, which is less useful with the 3-batter minimum, but we'll see. I got Andres Brasino. He's a right-handed bullpen arm. He struggled in Detroit's system forever. This man was in Detroit's system for a decade, and he never made it above high A, which is just shocking. He was a young guy when he got into the organization, to be fair, so he wasn't like 40, 30 hanging around high A ball, but he had a 4.84 ERA in high A. I mean, that's not great. Moved from a starter to a reliever around 2016, just trying to, unplug and plug it back in as, a reliever. That didn't work. Numbers really didn't change. He projects as another low leverage guy, so we're kind of a theme here right, in the Southern Maryland bullpen. That's the thing I see a lot of, especially like I've seen a month and a half out from a season where, some arms might free up beforehand, but you're just going to pack that bullpen, get some options in there, see how they come into like the preseason that you're going to run through. But yeah, projects a low leverage guy, and definitely a reliever. Might be a 5th or 6th starter. I think he has some starting experience. But the concerning stat, and it says a lot, he's got a 15% chance, which isn't, nothing, of actually having more walks than strikeouts this year, according to our model. Like, it's concerning. But it's not saying he's going to be in trouble, totally, but it'll be interesting. And a lot of that could come down to this last signing that we're going to talk about for Southern Maryland here, which is Daryl Thompson. The legend returns for his age 35 season. Now, Blue Crabs fans, don't freak out, because I want to say a lot of good stuff. I want to say the bad stuff, and then I want to say the good stuff, okay? Daryl Thompson will, of course, be good, but projections are now starting to cool off for him as he ages a little bit, and especially when, and this sounds, I know there's already people who are like, but hear me out. Over the past 4 seasons, which is really what you look at projecting, he's posted a 4.69 ERA in one season with a 5.19 FIP, which we talked about in 2016. He had a strong 2017 season, but his ERA was still above 3.5. And then he had a 3.38 ERA in 2017, but he had a FIP that was about a run higher. So again, he had some good luck going from that year. Even after 2019's very good season from him, like he pitched, a zillion innings in 2019. He was dominant, and he won every game seemingly. But he posted nearly a sub-1 whip. It was great, but there's still some reasons for hesitancy, as we see a guy in his mid-30s who's pitched more innings than he ever pitched in 2019, which I know he's had time to rest, but he's had time to rest. Who knows how he's going to come back? So that's the background on some concerns we have numbers-wise. However, he still projects to be an inning eater. He still projects to keep runners off base. Can he get batters out when he needs to is a concern. It seemed like he had some good luck when he did get into some trouble in 2019, which affected things. It made his numbers maybe pop a little bit more than they should have. Maybe it made those win totals come up a little bit more than they should have. Can he keep the ball in the yard? He's done a good job, but the numbers do creep up occasionally on him. And he usually maxes out at 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, which is not dominant by any means. And it is only worrisome when that tends to go down toward the end of careers. So if that starts to fall, it's going to be tough. You know, you get a guy on base, how many times could you really use a ground ball or a strikeout? And if you start losing down those strikeouts, you better hope that you're turning double plays and you're able to get guys to pop out. Because if not, it could be a very long year. More than that, though, his numbers are fine. His projections are like in the mid 3 ERA wise. Don't project him to be worse than a 4.0 ERA. High end projections, of course, are right around the 3 mark. That's pretty typical for him. More than that, he's going to be a great leader for this pitching staff. He's going to be the pitching coach. He's going to be working with young guys. He's going to be working with guys who are trying to revitalize their career, re-energize them a little bit. And I think he's the kind of guy that you look at. He's comfortable with where he is. He loves this team. He loves being in the Atlantic League. He's enjoying it. If I'm a guy, especially who's maybe coming from MLB organizations into the Atlantic League, I'm maybe a little uncertain, maybe a little anxious, maybe a little not sold on this whole idea, especially with rule changes and things like that. And I see Daryl Thompson here, who could, be doing anything else seemingly, and he's just out here repping Blue Crabs and just dealing, especially with that breadth of knowledge he has and the passion he's bringing into it. That's valuable and that's encouraging. So I think that's something that we cannot overlook with Southern Maryland. Again, I think he's going to be good, probably a mid-3s ERA. Perhaps after the crazy 2019 year, we might be a little bit foggy on the fact that he wasn't necessarily the most dominant pitcher ever, but his numbers sort of accumulated and looked good. That's my word of warning. But you can never argue with Daryl Thompson joining your team. That's a great thing. All right, last but not least, let's look at the York Revolution. Brought in Edward Paredes back with York after his last stint with them. He was actually with the team from 2013 to 2015, pitched his way onto an MLB organization, threw for the Dodgers for 2 years in the MLB. Both he and the Rebs are hoping for similar good results the second time around here. 3.0 ERA over 141 innings with the team the first go-round, 9.7 K9. Keep that in mind, 9.7 Ks per 9. He struck out 26% of all the batters that he was facing. His K9, though, has been increasing since he left York. I know that's sort of the style of the game will do that, but, he's striking out 12 dudes per 9 just about. We project him to strike out 11 per 9 this coming season. We project Paredes pretty much picking up where he left off. Mid-3s ERA is what we're looking at, which is, yes, a little bit worse than he actually put up his first go-around in York, but we do have him striking out more batters, and if he really hits a roll here, if he's getting like 11 or 12 strikeouts per 9 innings, if he's getting guys to put the ball on the ground, especially in York, which is a whole thing, and if he's facing batters that are good matchups for him, he's one of 2 lefties in the bullpen, so I assume between him and Jim Fuller, York's going to be really lining them up to attack some of these lineups. That ERA could dip as low as like a 2.5, a 2.4, so this is a great signing. He's a good anchor for a bullpen. He can pitch high leverage. He's not going to be shaken in big situations. The Dodgers, he was there when they were having some of their best years here. So he is not a stranger to a big scenario in a game where he's got to get outs. And that's what you want as you're going to be battling between, you're going to have some must-win games with Long Island coming to town, with Southern Maryland, who we've just talked about, with Lancaster across town, the Battle of the Roses. Like, you're going to need some outs, man. And even when you go on the road, you got the other division, you still got Lexington just gearing up to brawl. High Point's getting ready to go. West Virginia is going to be scrapping, and you're going to be dealing with Toastman all day. So this is a guy you want a good, consistent, experienced arm coming out of your bullpen, and he's that kind of guy. No fear of the decline yet in his projections. We are just ready to watch him rock. And that brings us to our last guy here, which is, personally, I think the best baseball name that we've got in this list. Orlando Calixte, which is, I assume, how you pronounce that, but it's how I'm pronouncing it because it sounds freaking great. Just top-notch baseball name. Any utility guy. Like, you want Orlando. Orlando city names, by the way, great infielder. I always think of, like, Paolo Orlando in the outfield, too. Another winner. But Orlando here, utility guy. He's got good potential just to absolutely do whatever you need him to do. Plays everything but first base and catcher, according to what I've seen. Doesn't pitch. Anyone can pitch. But, position players pitching. It's not that hard. It's going to be great. Don't worry about it. But 31 MLB games under his belt, 442 AAA games. He's played with the Giants organization, Mariners, Royals, and he's an interesting case. And hear me out here, because I'm trying to explain how to even deal with this. Like, the numbers we've seen in the PCL, if you've not been in the loop with that league out in AAA, are weird. They had the whole Super Bowl situation. I think it was jumping. They shattered home run records recently. And I introduced that fact to you because his AAA career, Orlando's AAA career, he slashed 254, 305, 396. His first 3 seasons, so talking 15 to 17, well before Super Bowl play, 245 average, 296 on base, 396 slugging. If you look at 2018-2019, before his 2019 was actually shortened by an injury, 272 average, much better than that 245 he started with there, 323 on base, much better than the 296, and another 396 slugging. I bring that to you because we don't know who he is. Like, we do not know what to do with this. His slugging stayed the same. The whole league slugging took off. His didn't. I mean, his numbers got better. He's on base, so perhaps the ball, get a little extra pop off it. It's finding some holes, finding some gaps. It's falling in a little bit. His BABIP is nothing extraordinary. Batting average on balls in play. So how often when he hits the ball is it finding a way to get a hit? It can often be an example of, wow, this guy gets lucky when the ball's in play. Don't read into it too much. Nothing like that going on, about league average. So it throws you off because you see some guy improve in the PCL over the past couple of years, and you're like, oh, well, yeah, everyone did, but he didn't in the way everyone did. His OPS plus, again, that measure against the rest of the league, how are you? 89, which is below average by a bit, but it could be that he wasn't affected as much by the ball as the rest of the league. I don't know what to do with them. The projections don't know what to do with them. It's a weird situation. Again, it could be that the ball had an effect and it just led to him getting on base more and the guy just doesn't have much pop. But it's also possible that the way that ball improved players did not interact necessarily as much with Orlando's game. And a theory being that, yes, he got better, but it wasn't because of the ball. It just happened to be while the ball was also in play. In which case, his improvement is pretty genuine. And we should ignore that OPS plus because, of course, he's below average because the rest of the league is banging home runs off this Super Bowl. And he's still, smacking the ball around and finding a way to get on. So that's a possibility. He's quick on the base pass. That's for sure. He's rangy defensively, which is huge for a league that doesn't use shifts in the infield. So regardless, it's a good pickup. It's a flexible pickup. He can move around the field. He can play multiple positions. You can put him out there 3 times in a weekend series in 3 different positions. He's going to be fine. He's going to get you 12 to 14 at-bats, depending on where you want to put him. So it's a good move by York, but it is an interesting one. And that's one to look for. We're going to be, I'm sure, revisiting Orlando and what's going on with him throughout this season because that is an interesting case, and we should keep that in mind. That's what we've got. This was a long video. I had to introduce who I am, had to introduce what's going on at ALPB Roundup, and why I'm on a futon. But thank you for riding with us here. Keep an eye out. We're going to do, as I said, we'll keep videos weekly. I might throw in an extra video in the next week or so, just an early season preview to give you a general outlook on how the season's shaping up before we start doing team by team in the week or so leading up to the season starting. Opening night. Catch me in Gastonia. I'll be there. That is May 27th. It was like a 6:50 game time. No, 6:20? 6:50? 6:50. It's a 6:50 game time. Gastonia and your game times. Okay. But 6:50 game time, and then I plan to be in York the night after. I'll probably be annoying and talking about that nonstop. So looking forward to it. I am thrilled. It has been, 17 months of talking transactions. Let's talk about some play on the field. I'm Ryan from ALPB Roundup. Thank you for riding through this whole long video and join us as we start the new adventure of video content.